Guess what? I'm Indy Neidell, and this is another exciting episode of Out of the Foxholes, where I sit here in the chair of infinite knowledge and I answer all your questions about the Second World War. Joe Zephyr asks, how were German soldiers paid? Every soldier within the German armed forces would receive a tax-free war service pay, Wehrsold, which varied in amount based on the rank of the recipient. Like a regular private got between 30 and 35 Reichsmarks, which is like 13 American dollars a month. A sergeant earned 45, a first lieutenant 80, a colonel 150, and a general 270, and that's like $108. Converted to today's standard, those $13 a private makes is equal to around $200 in 2020 dollars. Now bear in mind, the price of a loaf of bread was like 15 cents then, and that of a Volkswagen was just $360. This is, however, the bare minimum a non-married draftee would make when stationed behind the front lines. If you had a wife and children, you got direct payments from the civil authorities based on the number of children within the family. A professional soldier would, on top of the war service pay, also receive his regular pay. $31 for a senior private first class, $63 for a sergeant, $109 for a first lieutenant, $372 for a colonel, $771 for a general. This pay, though, was not tax-free, and the recipients' families would not be entitled to compensation. Draftees could apply for professional regular pay when they reached the rank of senior private first class. Another important factor in a soldier's salary was his time on the front lines, which would be covered in the form of Frontzulage, combat area service compensation. This is granted not because of the danger to life and limb, but for the more difficult living conditions. It consists of just 1 Reichsmark per day, but it does add up to make up a big chunk of Fritz's salary. And since uniforms, quarters, and rations are all provided, the soldier's free to spend his money on recreation, maybe in theaters or taverns, or just simply on booze and cigarettes. If you add it up, your average Fritz six-pack with the rank of senior private first class, unmarried, and turned professional because of the war, makes $14 a month for his wartime service, $31 regular pay for being a professional, and another $14 a month for being stationed in a combat area, for a total of 59 American dollars a month, equal to around $900 today. While our average Fritz earned a little more when he was a skilled factory worker before the war, he now does not have to provide for his own food or shelter, so he has more in his pocket. The only minor difference is that now he's being shot at. Martin Thompson asks, what was Argentina up to during World War II? When the conflict breaks out, Argentina is in the middle of crazy political and economic turmoil that will become known as the infamous decade, even though it lasts longer than 10 years. And Argentina already has a legacy of neutrality in European affairs, and it does continue this by staying neutral during the war, or for the most part at least. You see, most leading Argentine politicians lean towards supporting the Allied powers, but the country has a substantial population of German and Italian citizens. In fact, it has long-standing cultural ties with Germany, one that was even built upon an admiration for German military history. Following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. urges countries in South America to unite and join the war. They boycott any Argentine companies suspected of having ties with the Axis powers, and the newspapers are restricted to solely pro-Allied material. But Argentina rejects this effort and maintains neutrality. On a national scale, divisions are heightening, though. 2 groups are formed, right? The Aliadofilos, who are pro-allies, and the Neutralistas, who are pro-neutral. And each seriously defends its position. And in June 1943, the pro-allies military stages a coup against the pro-neutral government. A government who, by the way, was fraudulently elected. I told you, it was a time of great turmoil. So pressure for Argentina to join in the conflict seriously mounts now from all sides. Following the coup, a group of generals dominate the leadership of Argentina: Pedro Pablo Ramirez, Edelmiro Farrell, and Juan Perón, while rotating through the positions of president, vice president, secretary of war, minister of labor. They mobilized the country, and then finally, on March 27, 1945, Argentina declares war on the Axis powers just over a month before fighting comes to an end in Europe. Throughout the war, though, some 4,000 Argentines do serve in the British armed forces. Kaiser Donald der Große Mauerbauer. I think that's his real name. Astrid's laughing. Kaiser Donald der Große Mauerbauer. Okay, what's your question? Oh, wait, here it is. What is Otto von Habsburg doing during World War II? For those of you unfamiliar with Otto von Habsburg, he was born in 1912 as the last heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which disintegrated near the end of World War I. As we saw in a Between Two Wars episode, the power and status of the Habsburg dynasty rapidly declined. There's a link to the video, will be at the end if you missed that. As their neighbor, Austria is very much in Nazi Germany's Third Reich vision, but Otto objects to the Anschluss in 1938. He proclaims, Nazi fascism promises everything to everyone, but really intends the most ruthless subjugation of the Austrian people. The Nazi leaders, they're not too happy about these sentiments, to say the least, and so a target is put on Otto's head when Rudolf Hess orders his execution upon capture. In May 1940, as the Nazis continue their expansion on the continent, Otto uses a Belgian diplomatic passport to flee Belgium for France. Then, on the eve of the German capture of Paris in June, he leaves Paris for Portugal. A month goes by until he and his family can flee Europe by heading to Washington, D.C., where Otto spends the remainder of the war. Now, he's actually invited there by President Roosevelt, who he befriended a year earlier, and who tells Otto that the American people would be happy to see the people of Austria regain their place as an independent nation. So, in 1941, although Hitler has invalidated the Austrian citizenship of members of the House of Habsburg, Otto attempts to govern and protect his nation from afar. Despite his efforts running a country and lobbying for post-war independence while in exile, they prove pretty difficult. And he also struggles to assemble scattered political factions under one future national goal. Out of the world leaders, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill supports Otto's plans for a revised united Austrian nation. But until 1955, Austria remains in the hands of the Allied powers, who'd taken it from Germany in 1945. In Washington, Otto has considerable celebrity status as a royal in exile. In November 1943, he petitions for a commemorative American postage stamp for the Habsburg Empire, bearing his father Karl's portrait to express the authority of the Habsburg dynasty over the Austrian Republic. Otto von Habsburg, or more familiar known to the American people as Otto the Austrian, maintains his reputation as a brave victim resistant to the evils of the Nazi regime. Post-war, which is not really this channel's business, and it's not even actually what this question asks, but anyhow, Otto returns to Europe, but he does not have a passport by then, though, so he's stateless. Charles de Gaulle gets him one from Monaco, and he lives in France and Spain for a while, but he's not allowed to return to Austria until he renounces all claims to the throne. He does this in 1961, but the idea of his return sparks a big controversy, and he doesn't enter Austria until 1966. He serves as president of the International Pan-European Union from 1973 to 2004 and dies in 2011 at the age of 98. That is all for this episode. Thank you for all the questions submitted to our community forum, which you can find at community.timegoes.tv. There will be a link for that below as well. Join the Time Ghost Army at patreon.com or timegoes.tv. We could not do any of this without your support. Be sure to subscribe and to ring that bell. See you next time.